I'm going to take a little break in the wiring here to give you guys an update on where we are, what we're doing, what's happening. I've made a couple of changes on the fly. I started going through the control section, you know, volume, treble, and bass knobs, and I decided that because there is a knob on the front for middle, I'm going to go ahead and do a treble bass middle tone stack. And so I'm just putting in the components from a super reverb with treble, bass, and tone. This initial picofarad capacitor stays the same, but these two values changed over here, and I'll show you the schematic here in a little bit. Then I realized I didn't have the appropriate potentiometer for mid, so that's on order. I'll get that placed in there once it arrives. So we're doing we're sticking with the rest of the Princeton stuff, but we are doing that treble bass mid from a Fender Bassman 5F6A. So here are the capacitors that I changed out. We still have that 25 picofarad here at the top, and then we added in that 56K. Actually, I left that 100K resistor here, but I did put in the 0.02 in between the bass and the mid over here, and we'll get those wired in, like I said, once I get the mid knob, once that arrives. And I'll show you a couple. All right, got everything wired in on the Princeton. I haven't put any of my mods in yet. I'm gonna save that. I just wanted to make sure that this amplifier was fully functional before I started messing with it. And it is. Just did an audio test. Sounds great. Everything's biased. All the voltages look good, and it's working well. I did add in a bias board after all. I tried using, you know, like one of these guys, but it just, I don't know. This just looks a lot better. There's temporarily a 27K resistor in here. I'm going to add a pot just over here in between the intensity knob and the bias board. So I'll have an adjustable bias. It's that part's just not here yet. So I wanted to set it up and see how it sounded, and this gives me a good enough bias on the power tubes so I could check it out, and it sounds good. So the next step, now that I've got everything wired in, is going to be trying out, I think I'll do my effects loop first. And according to the schematic, and it's a little confusing. I think they've got it mislabeled a little bit, and I've talked about that already, but I'm pretty sure I'm gonna grab, this is the send here. I'm gonna take this one over to my jacks, my send and return jacks, and then we'll come back into pin 2, I'm sorry, pin 7 on V3, which is where this connection would normally be made anyway. So there's already a wire coming from here down to here. So I'm just going to interrupt it, basically. I'll take the signal over to the jack, and then from the jacks back down to here. That's going to be my first attempt at the effects loop. More on that later. And then this tube is not wired in yet. You can see I just have the heating elements on it so far, but this is going to be where I do the harmonic tremolo, and I'm still deciding if I'm going to do another little board like this guy, maybe mount it right in here, or if I'm going to try to use one of these guys like I did last time. I think I could probably do a lot better job second time around. This was kind of a cluster. So yeah, but now that I've tested this out and it sounds good, then I'll go ahead and start messing with things in the circuit, trying to get that harmonic tremolo happening and my send and return for the FX loop. I wanted to show you a couple of little details, some add-ons to this circuit. First of all, the tone stack, I have treble, mid, and bass wired in here. So this is your typical treble, mid, bass Fender tone stack, like in a Bassman. I do have a resistor going to ground from the mid. That seems to help keep everything nice and tight and all of the slopes in the right place. In addition to that, I've got a presence knob here, just like a Bassman. Presence, of course, only works when the negative feedback is in line. So I've got this switch here that turns the negative feedback off to give it like that growly mid boost thing that happens, like a tweed. When this is on, the presence knob works. When this is off, obviously the presence knob doesn't work because it's part of the negative feedback loop. So I really wanted to put a send and return in here for an effects loop, but I just couldn't get it to work without it buzzing really loud. I'm gonna turn it on and let you hear it for a second. But because the amplifier on the front has a little send and return option, I really wanted to do that. So I did wire it in. You can see there's my send and return. I'm using shielded cable, and I'm running it over to here. I'm taking it here after the 0.02. So we're coming out of the third tube. This is the output of the third tube. Comes through this, camera. Output of the third tube comes through this capacitor. And then it's jumping out of the circuit to the send, and then the return comes back down here on the grid of that same, on the other side of that same tube. Okay, this is the reverb return here. So we're essentially sending unreverberated signal or signal before the reverb out, and then sending this is the reverb return down here along with re-importing the signal from the send and return, the effects loop. But just listen to how noisy this is, and the noise is because of its proximity to the transformer, right? So normally we try to keep all of that sensitive stuff, like, you know, the tubes and all the potentiometers over here and the input jacks, away from you know, the noisy transformer. So just listen to how loud this is. Take a second to get warmed up. Yeah, there it goes. Like, that's pretty terrible. So what I'm gonna do is I could move this to a different position in the amp. In fact, somewhere along the back here would be probably the best place to put it, to get it far away from all of this interference that's happening over here. But I really want it to come out of those two jacks on the front, so I'm gonna build a shield and put it in place, okay? It's just gonna be out of aluminum, and it'll basically block these jacks off from the transformer. All right, so stay tuned and I'll show you what that sounds like. So this is what I'm gonna use to make my shield. I have a whole bunch of these lids. They go with all of the little parts trays that I use here. But they're originally for, you know, putting food in the freezer. They're kind of clever. Anyways, this should be about the right size for me to make the shield. And then I'll install it. It's aluminum, so it should be good for blocking any of those waves and interference that are coming from the transformer. All right, here's my shield. It's just gonna bolt in one bolt here, just underneath the bias board that I have in there, and it'll fit up around these guys. And then once I get it in there, I'll do an audio demonstration for it to see if it gets any quieter. And here it is with the shield installed. Extremely quiet. All right, you guys, we're about done with the amplifier build, so I thought I'd go over some of the modifications I made to the circuit that we built here. So essentially we started here with this Princeton Reverb AA 1164. We're using all of the same components, but we did add a couple of modifications, a couple of special features. The first one I'll point out is that right here, right there, we put in the send to our send and return effects loop. All right, and that's, you can see that on this schematic here. I followed this plan fairly well, but I made one change. The return from the reverb knob, I decided I did not connect it back to the same point. I just ran them both in parallel to the second half of the third tube, which is pin 7 over here. This schematic's mislabeled. So that's how I did the effects loop, and I'll show you that real quick on the amplifier. Okay, so here is that 3.3 meg. This is my send. Okay, normally this resistor and capacitor would be tied over to here, which is the return from the reverb knob, and that's where they get blended together. But instead we're sending it away to the effects loop, and then the return comes in down here, pin 7, and this is the return from the reverb knob. Okay, so we're actually blending them right here on pin 7 of the third tube. All right, the next modification I'd like to talk about is a master volume that we installed right here and right here. This is after the 0.1 capacitors that are going to the grids of the 6V6s. And I'll show you that over here. So there we go, these two wires. So this is a post-phase inverter master volume. I've got these two going up here to 250K pots. They're stacked together, so one knob turns both of them. So we've got an input here, and then the outputs are going to the grids. So this just basically interrupts that wire. We've also got a ground on it. The other significant modification we made was because we had bass, treble, and mid knob on the amplifier chassis, we did not use this tone stack. Instead, we used this tone stack from a Fender Bassman, so we could have treble, bass, and mid in here. All of these values are the same. Okay, and I like the way it sounds currently, but you could stick with these values if you liked this better, that 0.047, 0.1, and a 250. But we went ahead and switched over to these, where we've got 2.02s and then the 0025 for the treble, which is basically the same as this, the 250 picofarad. And let me show you that on the amplifier real quick. So the knobs, treble, mid, bass, in that order. Here are my caps. 250. Ooh, get a little focus there. 0.02. And then got the wiring. It's a little hard to see coming up here to treble, mid, and then bass on this end. We're grounding out through our treble, bass, mid, right? No, treble, mid, bass, and we're grounding out from the mid here with this resistor, which is on. Let me see here. Here we go. On the Rob Robinette site, coming off of the mid, this is I believe it's 56K, a little hard to read. Let me see. That's the 6.8K ground resistor, which is right here. So we kept that from the Princeton design. And I like basically everything that's happening by combining these two together. One of the last modifications we'll talk about is the negative feedback switch, which is installed here. On the tail end of that is a presence knob, which we also took from the Fender Bassman design. So we've got presence there. When the negative feedback is engaged, the presence knob functions. When the negative feedback is turned off, the presence knob does not function. It's basically filtering to ground signal that would be reintroduced to the circuit via the negative feedback loop. Well guys, here's the finished product. This is our Fender Princeton makeover. This was originally a Fender Princeton chorus, made in the late 90s or early 2000s, solid state with two 10-inch speakers. And we have put a hand-wired Fender Princeton blackface amp inside of it with a few special features. So I thought I'd just show you the front here real quick. You can see that I've put plugs in to the holes that I'm not using and marked over the writing with black paint. I got a paint pen that said it was matte black, but it's still not quite the right color to match whatever this color is on the Fender faceplate. So a little bit of a drag, but you know, at a distance on stage, you can't really tell. So we'll go over the features here on the front panel. We kept the standard inputs with high gain and low gain, volume obviously, and we have a treble, mid, and bass EQ setup, similar to a Fender Bassman. Reverb. These two knobs were not usable because this was a second channel that we're not going to do. Mid boost is actually our negative feedback on-off switch. So when it's down, it's on. When it's up, it's off. That makes the amp louder and more mid-rangey. We have a presence knob that's part of the negative feedback loop. Over here we have a master volume or high cut, depending on the position of this switch. And then we have our tremolo, which is labeled chorus, unfortunately, but hey, what are you gonna do? With rate and depth. And then of course a actual pilot light and a single switch, no standby, for this amplifier to turn on. Come around to the back so you can see how that looks. Pretty wide open. You can see right into the tubes. Was thinking about maybe adding a backing plate here to give a little extra protection, but we'll see. I might do that later. I might not. We got the two 10-inch speakers in there, and then our 1 amp fuse speaker output. You could hook up a dual button pedal if you wanted to for vibrato and reverb, and then our reverb send and return. Reverb tank is nestled down here in the bottom, and we still have the foot switch just in case you needed that. But of course it's labeled chorus and channel, so not super helpful. Well, let's go ahead and plug in and turn it up and see what it sounds like. All right, here we go. That input volume knob is actually very sensitive, so I'm on about 1.5 right now. The volume knob is currently switched to the master volume control, and it's all the way up at 10. Presence is at 0, and treble, mid, and bass are all at 5. This is the neck pickup, so pretty bassy. Here's the bridge pickup. Cool, let's try that reverb. On about 1. Here's 3. whole lot of reverb. Let's check out that tremolo. Here, so speed of 2 and depth of 5. Speed of 5, depth of 8. Speed of 1, depth of 10. Cool. Here's that mid boost for you. You can hear it get pretty hairy there. Cool. Let's check out that high cut. It gets quieter, it gets also a lot more distorted. Back to a normal clean sound. Great, well that'll about do it for this amp build. Hope you guys enjoyed this conversion. I've got a couple more that I'm working on right now and they should be done soon. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you like and subscribe this channel so you can get all the latest repairs and rebuilds and modification tips from Warehouse Guitars. Well, that's going to do it for this rebuild, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. The Fender Princeton reverb is finished and going to be looking for a new home now. I got 2 more that I'm working on, a couple of Tech 21s, so come back for those. Make sure you like and subscribe this channel so you'll get all the latest updates from me and videos. Yeah, and stay tuned for more from Warehouse Amps.